Once she signs tomorrow, we own the timeline. Major Lauren Mitchell stopped 3 feet from the conference room door, her hand still wrapped around the paper cup of coffee she had bought downstairs. Eric Dawson's voice came through the narrow opening between the door and its frame, calm enough to make the words worse. Lauren had arrived at the Virginia hotel almost an hour early because the wedding coordinator wanted her opinion on a last-minute seating change. Eric believed she was still across town with her mother. He had no reason to whisper. "You are sure she will sign?" another man asked. Lauren recognized the voice as Eric's best man. Eric gave a quiet laugh. "Lauren reads Army paperwork all day. She will see 3 boring signatures, make one of those serious faces, and move on. By the time she understands what changed, everything will already be in motion." Lauren did not move. Beyond the hallway windows, afternoon sunlight washed across the hotel lawn where workers were arranging rows of white chairs beneath tall oak trees. A delivery cart rattled somewhere near the elevators. Inside the conference room, papers slid across a table. "I still think you should tell her," the best man said. "I will." "Before she signs?" Silence. Lauren lowered her coffee slightly. "Eric?" the man pressed. "After the wedding," Eric answered. "When there is no pressure and she cannot turn everything into an analysis." Lauren's expression remained still. 14 years in the United States Army had taught her that the first version of a story was rarely the complete one. Eric knew she was a major. He knew she sometimes worked late, traveled without giving him much detail, and received calls that ended the moment she entered a crowded room. What he did not know was what her assignments had actually required. Lauren had never lied about her service. She simply did not discuss responsibilities that did not belong in casual conversation. Eric had filled those empty spaces himself. To him, she reviewed reports, attended meetings, managed schedules, and signed government forms. He jokingly called her major paperwork. Lauren had allowed the nickname because correcting every assumption had never seemed necessary. Until now. "What exactly happens once she signs?" the best man asked. Eric lowered his voice and Lauren caught only fragments. "Financial authorization. Existing commitment." After the ceremony, she heard enough to understand one thing clearly. The document concerned her, and Eric did not want her to understand it before her signature was on the page. Her first instinct was not anger. It was sequence. What had he told her? What had he sent her? What had changed? 3 nights earlier, Eric had mentioned a few routine financial documents they could finish before leaving for their honeymoon. Lauren had barely considered it unusual. They had spent months signing contracts for flowers, photography, catering, hotel rooms, and transportation. One more folder had seemed harmless. Now harmless was no longer an assumption she was willing to make. Her phone vibrated inside her purse. She removed it carefully. A message from Eric glowed on the screen. "Hope you are having a good afternoon with your mom. Cannot wait to see you tonight. Love you." Lauren read it once. Behind the door, Eric continued discussing tomorrow morning as if her agreement were already guaranteed. She could have walked inside. She could have placed the phone on the table and asked him to explain every word. Instead, Lauren stepped backward without making a sound. She walked toward the elevator, pressed the button, and waited beneath the soft gold hallway lights. When the doors opened, she entered alone. Eric believed he had until tomorrow morning to secure her signature. Lauren watched the conference floor disappear as the elevator descended. She intended to use every minute before then to discover why. By 6:30 that evening, the hotel ballroom looked exactly the way Lauren had imagined it months ago, and nothing felt the way it should. Warm light spilled from brass fixtures above linen-covered tables. White roses stood in low glass arrangements. Silverware clicked against china while relatives from 3 states traded stories over dinner. Lauren moved through the room beside Eric with an easy smile, accepting congratulations, thanking guests, and giving no sign that she had spent the previous 3 hours quietly reconstructing every conversation they had shared about money before the wedding. Eric seemed completely at ease. That interested her more than nervousness would have. "There she is," he said when one of his college friends asked how Lauren was surviving the final preparations. "Major paperwork herself." Give her a stack of forms, and she is happier than most people are on vacation. The table laughed. Lauren smiled because she had smiled at the joke dozens of times before. Somebody has to read the fine print, she said. Eric lifted his glass. That is why I am marrying you. Across the table, his best man did not laugh. His eyes met Lauren's for less than a second before dropping toward his plate. There it was again. Not guilt exactly. Discomfort. Lauren stored the detail without reacting. Eric knew she was an army major. He knew she had served for 14 years and that some of her assignments required discretion. But whenever she returned home late from a secure office or spent a weekend reviewing material she could not discuss, he reduced the mystery to paperwork. Lauren had never corrected him because rank was public and responsibility was not always something she could explain. More importantly, she had believed a marriage could survive a few unanswered professional questions as long as the personal ones were answered honestly. Tonight, that belief felt less certain. During dessert, Eric leaned toward her. Tomorrow morning should be easy. Breakfast, signatures, then you disappear with your mother until the ceremony. Lauren turned slightly. Signatures. 3 boring ones. His tone was casual. The financial housekeeping I mentioned. Nothing dramatic. Send them to me tonight. Eric paused just long enough for her to notice. They are already printed. I would still like electronic copies. Lauren, you are going to spend our last night before the wedding reading legal language? He smiled, but his eyes searched hers. Occupational hazard. I promise there is nothing interesting in there. Then it should be quick. Before Eric could answer, the best man rose from his chair and excused himself. He left half his dessert untouched. Lauren watched him cross the ballroom and disappear through the doors. Eric reached for her hand. You are doing that thing again. What thing? Analyzing everybody. I was watching him leave. Same difference. He squeezed her fingers. Tomorrow is supposed to be about us. Try not to turn it into a briefing. Lauren looked at the man she had planned to marry in less than 20 hours. His smile was familiar. His hand was warm. Nothing about the moment would have seemed unusual yesterday. I will try, she said. Later, after dinner, Lauren returned alone to her room. She removed her shoes, set her phone beside the lamp, and opened the shared wedding folder on her laptop. Contracts. Receipts. Insurance information. Travel confirmations. Then she noticed the file history. One document had been uploaded 4 days earlier and removed that afternoon, less than an hour before she overheard Eric in the conference room. Lauren stared at the file name. It belonged to a financial firm Eric had once described as a small investment opportunity. She checked the deletion timestamp, then remembered his promise about 3 boring signatures. For the first time that evening, Lauren stopped smiling. Lauren did not touch the laptop for several seconds. The deleted file name remained in the activity log, ordinary enough to disappear among dozens of wedding documents if she had not been looking for something that did not belong. She copied the name into a note on her phone, then checked her email. 3 weeks earlier, Eric had forwarded her a message from the same financial firm with a short explanation that it concerned an investment he was considering with 2 friends. Lauren remembered asking whether he needed her opinion. He had said no. It was small, personal, and completely separate from their wedding finances. At the time, she had accepted that answer. Now she opened the message again. The original attachment was gone from the shared folder, but the email still carried a reference number and the name of an account representative. Lauren wrote both down. She did not attempt to access Eric's private accounts. She did not search his phone or guess passwords. Suspicion did not give her permission to cross boundaries. Facts had to come from places she was entitled to examine. She opened their joint wedding expense spreadsheet next. Nothing immediately looked wrong. Deposits matched receipts. The hotel balance matched the contract. Photography, flowers, transportation, and catering were exactly where they should have been. Then she noticed a transfer Eric had labeled temporary reimbursement. The amount was not enormous, but it had been returned to their wedding account 2 days later from an account Lauren did not recognize. She searched their old messages. Eric had explained the transfer as a timing issue with the hotel deposit. Lauren compared the dates. The hotel had already received its deposit 11 days earlier. She leaned back in the chair. 1 inconsistency could be memory. 2 could be coincidence. 3 required explanation. At 10:17, someone knocked softly on her door. Lauren closed the laptop before opening it. Eric's best man stood in the hallway with his jacket folded over one arm. "Sorry," he said. "I saw your light under the door. Is something wrong?" He hesitated. "No. I just wanted to say tomorrow is a big day." Lauren waited. He looked toward the elevator, then back at her. "Eric cares about you." "I know. Sometimes he gets ahead of himself when he thinks he can fix something." Lauren's face remained neutral. "What does he think he needs to fix?" The man's expression changed immediately. "I should not have said anything." "Then why did you come here?" He had no answer. Lauren let the silence remain between them. She had learned long ago that people often rushed to fill silence when they were uncomfortable. This time he did not. "Good night, Lauren," he finally said. "Good night." She closed the door and returned to the desk. Her phone showed a new message from Eric. "Breakfast at 8. I will bring coffee and the paperwork. 10 minutes, then we are done." Lauren read it twice. She opened the wedding folder again and checked the document history more carefully. The deleted file had not merely been uploaded 4 days earlier. Eric had renamed it before removing it. The first file name included the words asset authorization. The second called it final wedding forms. Lauren felt something inside her settle into place. Not certainty. Not yet. But the shape of the problem was becoming clearer. She saved screenshots of the records she was authorized to access and emailed them to herself. Then she set an alarm for 6:30 and placed the phone beside the bed. Tomorrow, Eric expected 10 minutes, 3 signatures, and a bride too distracted by her wedding to ask difficult questions. Lauren turned off the lamp. He was going to get the questions first. At 7:58 the next morning, Lauren heard 2 light knocks on her hotel room door. She was already dressed in dark slacks and a white blouse, her wedding gown still hanging untouched near the window. Beyond the glass, early sunlight stretched across the lawn where staff members were placing programs on white chairs. Lauren opened the door. Eric stood there holding 2 coffees and a cream-colored folder. "Right on schedule," he said with a smile. 1 vanilla latte, 1 future husband, and approximately 10 minutes of boring responsibility. Lauren stepped aside. "Come in." Eric placed the coffees on the table and kissed her cheek. If he was nervous, he hid it well. "Your mother coming up soon?" "In about 40 minutes. "Perfect. We will be done long before that." He opened the folder and arranged 3 sets of papers across the table. The first concerned a hotel billing adjustment. The second authorized a change to their travel insurance after marriage. Lauren read both carefully. Eric watched for a moment, then laughed. "You really cannot help yourself." "Help myself with what?" "Reading every word. That is generally why words are printed." He smiled and pushed the 3rd document toward her. "This is the financial housekeeping one." Lauren did not touch the pen beside it. She began at the top. The company name matched the deleted file from the night before. Several paragraphs described an investment entity Eric had formed with other participants. Deeper into the document, the language changed. Lauren slowed down. The agreement appeared to authorize financial decisions. Under specific conditions after their marriage, including access to funds that could later become connected to jointly managed assets. It did not simply organize existing accounts. It created authority. "What is this?" Lauren asked. Eric took a sip of coffee. "Exactly what I told you. It simplifies things once we are married." "What things?" "Accounts. Investments. Transfers. Normal married couple stuff." Lauren looked back at the page. "Why is your investment company involved in normal married couple stuff?" Eric's smile faded slightly. "Because I already have the structure established. It saves us from creating everything twice." Why was this document called asset authorization before it was renamed? Eric stopped moving. The silence lasted barely a second, but Lauren noticed it. "Probably something from the firm's template. You renamed it." "I cleaned up the file name so everything would be together." Lauren turned another page. Why was it removed from our shared folder yesterday afternoon? Eric pulled out the chair opposite her. Lauren, what is happening right now? I am reading what you asked me to sign. No, you're interrogating me over file names. His voice was still controlled, but the warmth had disappeared. We have a wedding in a few hours. I am trying to make this easy. Lauren placed one finger beside a paragraph. This language gives you authority I do not currently give you. Only for managing things efficiently. Which things? Future joint assets. That is not what you told me last night. Eric leaned back. Do you trust me? The question settled between them. Lauren looked at him for several seconds. Yesterday, she might have heard affection in those words. This morning, she heard pressure. Trust does not require me to sign something I do not understand. Eric exhaled. You understand legal language better than most people. You deal with complicated documents every day. Then you should expect me to read this one. I expect you to recognize that I am not trying to hurt you. Lauren closed the document. That is not the same question. Eric glanced at the clock. Your mother will be here soon. Then we have less time. 4. What? Lauren slid the unsigned document back across the table. For you to explain why you needed my signature before you were willing to explain what it actually does. Eric stared at the papers. Lauren, please. We can talk about every detail after the ceremony. She pushed the pen toward him instead. No. His eyes lifted to hers. Lauren's voice remained quiet. I am not signing this. Eric stared at the unsigned document as if the empty signature line had personally betrayed him. For several seconds, the only sound in the room came from the air conditioner humming beneath the window. Then he closed the folder. Fine, he said. We will deal with it later. Lauren remained standing beside the table. There may not be a later unless you explain it now. Eric looked up sharply. You are seriously questioning our wedding over paperwork? I am questioning why the man I am supposed to marry wanted me to sign paperwork without understanding it. That is not what happened. Then tell me what happened. He rubbed a hand across his jaw and walked toward the window. Outside, hotel employees were testing the small sound system near the ceremony lawn. A few notes of music drifted through the glass. The investment had problems, Eric finally said. Temporary problems. Lauren waited. What kind? Cash flow. Timing. Nothing permanent. And my signature solves that? It gives us flexibility. Us? Lauren asked. Or you? Eric turned around. Why are you talking to me like I am one of your soldiers? The words landed harder than his raised voice would have. Lauren's expression barely changed. I do not talk to my soldiers this way. You know what I mean. No. I know you're avoiding the question. Eric looked toward the folder. The company needs additional backing before a financing deadline. Once we are married, our combined financial position makes everything easier. Lauren understood immediately why the authorization mattered. You intended to use assets connected to me as support for your investment. Our assets, Eric corrected. After today. Not automatically. We are getting married, Lauren. Most people do not enter marriage planning separate. Financial battle lines. She studied him. Most people also do not hide financial authorization inside wedding paperwork. Eric's face tightened. I was going to explain it. After I signed? He said nothing. Lauren felt the silence answer for him. Her phone vibrated on the dresser. Her mother had arrived downstairs. Lauren ignored the message for the moment. How much? She asked. What? How much does the company need? Eric hesitated. About $280,000 in additional backing. Lauren's eyes remained on him. The number was larger than she had expected, but her voice stayed level. And you believed my financial position could provide that? You have stable income. Retirement contributions. Investments. You own your condo. You have excellent credit. Lauren felt something colder than anger move through her. Eric knew more about her finances than she had realized, yet apparently understood less about her career than he believed. You researched my assets. We are engaged. That is normal. Knowing what I own is not the same as having authority over it. I never said it was. The document did. Eric stepped closer to the table. This is exactly why I did not want to explain it this morning. You turn everything into procedure. Lauren almost smiled, but there was no humor in it. Procedure had protected people when memory failed, when pressure distorted judgment, and when someone insisted that urgency mattered more than verification. Eric had always mistaken her discipline for rigidity because he had never understood where it came from. He knew her rank, but not the work behind it. He did not know that Lauren had spent years evaluating sensitive operational risks, identifying weak assumptions, and recognizing when seemingly harmless decisions created consequences far beyond the first signature. He had imagined that secrecy made her easier to mislead. It had done the opposite. Another knock sounded at the door. "Lauren," her mother called softly from the hallway. Eric looked toward the door, then back at her. "Please do not make this bigger than it is." Lauren picked up the cream-colored folder and held it against her side. "I am not making it bigger, Eric." She walked toward the door. "I am finally seeing how big it already was." Lauren opened the door to find her mother standing in the hallway with a garment bag over one shoulder and a small makeup case in her hand. One look at Lauren's face made her smile disappear. "What happened?" Lauren glanced back at Eric. "I need a little time." Her mother looked between them, then nodded without asking another question. "I will be downstairs." When the door closed again, Eric stood beside the window with both hands in his pockets. "You are involving your mother now?" "I asked her for time." "That is how this starts, Lauren." Then everyone gets worried, the ceremony gets delayed, and suddenly a financial misunderstanding becomes the only thing anybody remembers about our wedding. Lauren placed the folder on the table. "Then explain it before anyone else needs to know." Eric looked away. "I already explained it." "You explained what you hoped it would accomplish. You did not explain what you already committed to." His head turned back toward her. Lauren watched the change in his expression. "Small. Immediate. What makes you think I committed to anything?" he asked. "Because nobody needs $280,000 in additional backing unless someone has already promised something they cannot currently support." Eric's jaw tightened. "You are guessing." "Then correct me." Silence returned. Lauren did not fill it. Finally, Eric pulled out a chair and sat down. "I told the other investors I could strengthen our position after the wedding." "With my assets?" "With our combined financial position." "Before asking me." "I thought you would understand once I showed you the numbers." "You did not show me the numbers." Eric pressed his palms together. "Because every time money gets complicated, you treat it like a risk assessment." Lauren looked at him steadily. "Complicated money is a risk assessment." "That is exactly what I mean." His frustration sharpened. "You cannot just trust a decision. Everything has to be verified." "Important decisions should be." Eric stood again. "You make it sound like I planned some elaborate deception." Lauren thought of the conference room, the half-open door, the lowered voices, the sentence about what would happen once she signed. She had not intended to reveal what she knew yet, but Eric had reached the point where another vague answer would only waste time. "Yesterday afternoon," she said, "I came back to the hotel early." Eric stopped. "I was on the conference floor." His face changed before he spoke. "Lauren, I heard voices behind a door." He stared at her. Then came the question. "Not what did you hear? Not were you listening?" His first instinct went somewhere else. "How much did you hear?" Lauren felt the final uncertainty disappear. "Enough." Eric looked down at the carpet. "You were not supposed to be there." "That is your concern?" "No. I mean, I thought you were with your mother. So you were comfortable saying it because you believed I could not hear you." Eric exhaled slowly. "That conversation sounded worse than it was." "Then tell me the version that sounds better." "I was trying to protect the investment until I could stabilize it. By using financial authority, you expected me to grant without knowing why. By solving the problem before it became our problem." Lauren shook her head once. "It became my problem when you decided my signature belonged in your solution." Eric's voice softened. "I was scared, Lauren. The investment started slipping 6 weeks ago. I thought I could fix it. Then the deadline moved up. I did not want to tell you days before the wedding that I had made a bad decision." For the first time, Lauren heard something honest in his voice. Fear. Perhaps even shame. But honesty arriving after discovery was not the same as honesty freely given. She picked up her phone. Who are you calling? Eric asked. My attorney. His eyes widened. You have an attorney for this? I have an attorney because adults sometimes need independent advice before signing financial documents. Lauren, that is unnecessary. Maybe. She unlocked the phone. Verification will tell us. Eric stared at her as if he were seeing an unfamiliar person wearing the face of the woman he planned to marry. He knew she was a major. He knew she served in the United States Army. What he had never understood was why senior officers had trusted her judgment when incomplete information, pressure, and confident assumptions entered the same room. Lauren selected the number. Before anything happens today, she said quietly, I want to know exactly what you were asking me to become responsible for. Lauren's attorney returned her call 23 minutes later. By then, Eric had moved to the far side of the room, checking his phone every few seconds while Lauren sat at the table with the cream-colored folder open in front of her. She summarized only what mattered, then photographed the relevant pages and sent them through the secure client portal her attorney provided. Do not sign anything, the attorney said after reviewing the language. This does not automatically make you responsible for the company's existing obligations, but it appears to grant broader financial authority than the explanation you were given. I want to review the complete agreement and any related documents before you consent to anything. Lauren thanked her and ended the call. Eric had heard enough. So now a lawyer is involved on our wedding day. A lawyer is involved because you asked me to sign a legal document. You are making this sound criminal. I have not accused you of a crime. Then what are you accusing me of? Lauren closed the folder. Hiding information. Before Eric could answer, another knock came from the door. This time it was the wedding coordinator, asking whether Lauren needed anything before preparations began. Standing beside her was Colonel Susan Mercer, wearing a dark blue dress instead of a uniform, her silver hair pinned neatly above her shoulders. Lauren had served under her years earlier and had invited her as a guest, not as a superior officer. Susan took one look at Lauren and understood that something was wrong. Bad time? She asked. Complicated time, Lauren replied. Eric forced a smile. Lauren found some paperwork she does not like. Susan glanced at the folder. That sounds dangerous. Eric laughed, relieved by what he assumed was a joke. You know her. Give major paperwork one suspicious paragraph and suddenly, the whole world needs an investigation. Susan's expression changed. Not dramatically. Just enough. Major paperwork? Eric shrugged. That is what I call her. Lauren spends half her life buried in reports. Susan looked at Lauren, who said nothing. Reports, Susan repeated. That is one word for it. Eric's smile weakened. What would you call it? Susan considered him for a moment. Judgment. The room became quiet. Lauren has spent years working in assignments where senior leaders needed someone to examine incomplete information, identify weak assumptions, and tell them when a plan did not survive scrutiny. Eric looked at Lauren. You never told me that. You never asked what the work required, Lauren said. Susan continued carefully, revealing nothing that should remain private. There are details she cannot discuss. But I can tell you this much. People did not seek her assessment because she was good at moving paper from one desk to another. Eric's eyes returned to the folder. For the first time that morning, something besides frustration appeared on his face. Recognition. He had built his plan around an assumption about Lauren, and that assumption had been wrong. Susan touched Lauren lightly on the shoulder. I will be downstairs if you need me. Thank you. After Susan left with the coordinator, Eric remained silent. Lauren checked the time. The ceremony was still several hours away, but guests would begin arriving soon. There is one more person I want to speak with, she said. Eric looked up. Who? Your best man. Why? Because he was in the conference room yesterday. Eric immediately shook his head. Leave him out of this. Lauren noticed the speed of the response. He is already in it. He does not know the whole situation. Then he can tell me the part he does know. Eric stepped closer. Lauren, please. I told you I made a mistake. I was scared. I thought I could fix it before it affected us. You also thought you could get my signature before telling me. I was going to tell you. Afterward. Eric looked toward the window. Below them, white chairs were nearly filled with programs, and the floral arch stood ready beneath the Virginia. Morning sun. Everything outside the room was moving toward a wedding. Everything inside it was moving toward the truth. Lauren picked up her phone. Call him. Eric did not move. Why? He asked quietly. Lauren met his eyes. Because I have heard your explanation. Now I want to know whether it matches the one you gave him. Eric's best man arrived 10 minutes later, still wearing the gray slacks and white shirt he had chosen for the ceremony. His tie hung loose around his neck. When he entered Lauren's room and saw the cream-colored folder on the table, he stopped near the door. Eric remained by the window. Tell her, Eric said. The best man looked at him. Tell her what? Lauren pulled out the chair across from her. Yesterday you told Eric he should explain something to me before I signed. I want to know what you meant. The man's eyes shifted toward Eric again. I knew the investment was having trouble. How long? Lauren asked. A few weeks. Did you know Eric planned to use my financial position to strengthen it? He hesitated. I knew he believed marriage would make the financing easier. Eric interrupted. That is not the same thing. Lauren did not look away from the best man. Did you see this document before yesterday? Yes. Did you tell him to show it to me? Another pause. Yes. Eric pushed away from the window. You told me to explain it. You never said the document itself was wrong. I said she needed to know what she was signing. The best man's voice was quiet now. I told you more than once. The room seemed to shrink around those words. Lauren had already heard enough to understand the financial problem. What she needed now was the sequence of choices. When did he first tell you he planned to get my signature? She asked. Last week. Before or after he knew the company needed additional backing? After. Eric shook his head. This is ridiculous. You are making it sound calculated. Lauren finally turned toward him. Was it? No. Then why rename the document? Eric opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Why remove it from the shared folder? Still nothing. Why wait until the morning of the wedding? His shoulders lowered. Because I knew you would say no if you had time to take it apart. The sentence settled over the room. Eric seemed to realize what he had admitted only after the words were already gone. Lauren's face remained still. There it is, she said. What? The truth. Eric stepped forward. That is not what I meant. You knew informed consent might produce an answer you did not want, so you tried to control how much information I had and how much time I had to consider it. I was under pressure. So was I. I am supposed to get married today. The best man looked down. Eric rubbed both hands over his face. I was scared of losing everything I put into the company. Lauren's voice softened, but not her meaning. I understand being scared. Eric looked at her hopefully. Then you understand why I did it. No. I understand the feeling. I do not accept the choice. Her phone rang. It was her attorney. Lauren answered and listened carefully. The complete review had confirmed the document could grant Eric meaningful authority over certain future jointly managed financial decisions. But it did not automatically transfer Lauren's separate property or make her responsible for every existing company obligation. The distinction mattered. So did the deception surrounding it. When the call ended, Lauren placed the phone on the table. My attorney confirmed what the document does and what it does not do. Eric exhaled. So you know I was not stealing anything from you. That was never my accusation. Then we can fix this. Lauren looked at the folder, then at the man she had expected to marry within hours. The document can be fixed. Outside, a vehicle rolled slowly along the hotel drive as early guests began arriving. The question is whether the reason you hid it can be. By 11:30, the hotel lawn was ready for a wedding that Lauren no longer knew would happen. White chairs stood in perfect rows beneath the oak trees, the floral arch moved gently in the warm Virginia breeze, and guests had begun gathering inside the lobby with programs in their hands. Upstairs, Lauren stood beside the window while Eric sat silently across the room. His best man had left after answering every question she asked. The cream-colored folder remained closed on the table. Lauren's wedding gown still hung near the wall. Her mother entered quietly and closed the door behind her. The coordinator needs to know whether to delay the ceremony, she said. Lauren nodded. Tell her there will be no ceremony today. Eric stood immediately. Lauren. She turned toward him. Please do not do this because of one mistake. It was not one mistake. I panicked. You made a bad investment. That was a mistake. You hid the problem for 6 weeks. That was a choice. You promised other people access to financial strength you did not control. That was another choice. You were named a document so I would be less likely to question it. Another choice. You waited until the morning of our wedding because you believed I would have less time to think. Another choice. Eric lowered his eyes. I thought once we were married, we would handle everything together. Together begins with asking. Her mother remained near the door, saying nothing. Eric looked toward the gown. We have almost 100 people downstairs. I know. Our families flew here. We paid for everything. People rearranged their lives for today. Lauren's voice remained steady. None of that makes a marriage safer to enter. Eric stared at her. So that is it? Lauren looked at the man she had loved, and for the first time since hearing him through the conference room door, sadness reached her before anger could. I do not know what happens to us after today, she said. But I know I will not stand in front of everyone and make a lifelong promise while wondering whether you respect my right to make my own decisions. Eric sat down again. No argument followed. Perhaps he finally understood there was no sentence clever enough to repair what had happened before noon. Lauren's mother crossed the room and took her hand. I will tell the coordinator. When the door opened, Colonel Susan Mercer stood in the hallway. She had apparently been waiting nearby without intruding. Lauren's mother quietly explained. Susan nodded once and stepped inside after she left. I am sorry, Susan said. Lauren looked toward the lawn. I keep thinking I should feel embarrassed. Why? Everyone downstairs came for a wedding. Susan moved beside her. Then they came because they care about you. A ceremony being cancelled does not change that. Lauren gave a tired smile. Eric always thought my work made me suspicious. Your work taught you to respect consequences. Susan paused. There is a difference. Eric looked up from across the room. I underestimated her. Susan did not answer for Lauren. She did not need to. Eric continued, his voice quieter. I thought because she never talked about what she did, it meant it was ordinary. Lauren turned from the window. Ordinary work still deserves respect. Eric nodded slowly. I know. No, she said gently. You know now. 20 minutes later, Lauren walked downstairs in the same white blouse and dark slacks she had worn that morning. Conversations faded as she entered the lobby beside her mother. No uniform. No ceremony. No dramatic announcement. She simply told the people she loved that the wedding would not take place and thanked them for coming. Nobody demanded an explanation. Colonel Mercer stood near the back and gave Lauren the smallest nod. Lauren returned it. Outside, the breeze lifted the unused programs from one chair and carried a single sheet across the grass. Lauren watched it tumble beneath the oak trees and felt the strange quiet that comes when a future disappears, but a life remains. She had spent years learning that courage was not always advancing toward the plan. Sometimes it was recognizing that the plan had become wrong and refusing to follow it simply because everyone was already waiting. Some decisions earn applause. The most important ones often earn only silence.